Hey everybody, it's your friend Dave Cameo, host of Squawking Dead, and I wanted to give you a little bit of a preamble before we jumped into the episode. What we're doing here for the rest of the season of House of the Dragon is somewhat similar to what we did with Better Call Saul's final season. We separated our reaction to this episode from the in-depth analysis, giving you two halves of a whole, essentially, and that comes up in this episode in terms of Arik and Eric. It also allows for a lot more audience participation. So if you happen to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/squawkingdead, and enable notifications, you'll be alerted to when we react to this episode, which is essentially minutes after the episode is finished airing publicly on HBO/Max. I highly encourage you to do so because it makes these reaction episodes that much more incredible. Your feelings on these episodes are integral to our reactions because it's one thing if it's just us reacting to these episodes, but getting many more dimensions on what we've just seen makes these episodes a lot more exciting to engage with. So without further ado, here is our reaction to House of the Dragon's second episode, actually titled, we find out later on in the episode, and it turns out to be true, Rhaenyra the Cruel. We are Squawking Dead, a podcast pulverizing episodes beyond the Walking Dead universe. Sometimes we give you news, sometimes we make you laugh, but most times we live stream on the internets. I'm your host, David Cameo, and I'm joined by Sharon D, aka Blazy Gardner, and Bridget, ko-fi.com/punkybrewster. That's PUNKYBRUISETER. And we're here live to discuss your impressions, reactions, discombobulations of this episode of House of the Dragon, the second episode, titled, I don't know what the title was because it didn't say it.
Didn't have it on. It didn't have it on Amazon either.
Maybe it didn't have one. I think maybe they'll either update it with the title. It's not on IMDb. It's not anywhere else.
I'm gonna name it A Brother for a Brother. I think that's fair. We had a son for a son last week and a brother for a brother this week. I think that's a good name.
Fair enough. Or hand for a hand.
It might be called Sleep with One Eye Open.
That's every episode, Bridget.
No, I'm saying episode. I just read that online.
That would make sense because when Aemon was laying with his lady love on the bed, which let me tell you, so I see a whole lot of Game of Thrones callbacks here. Number one, Aemon laying with the lady with his eye open, right? Because it's just a big sapphire. That reminded me of Unsullied, who would go to the Lady of the Night, and all he wanted to do was lay there and have her stroke his head because they never had a mom, right? And I get the feeling like Alicent was not like the coolest mom, right? She did not really dote on her children the way Rhaenyra does because Aemon obviously feels like he doesn't have a mom. And the way she just left Aegon and he's crying in the bedroom after losing his baby and she just walks in and looks at him and then leaves. This show is doing its best to make me hate Kristen and Alicent. Let me do my standard in the books thing. Again, if I say something from the books, just remember the books are not a story. They are a history. They can do whatever they want and still make it fit. So in the books, they're much more Team Green, and they try to make Rhaenyra look as bad as possible. So they're kind of going the opposite way in the show.
She's a fat old cow. It was something you said last time.
Well, that's interesting, Sharon D, because what do they always say about history books?
Oh, it's written by the victor, right? The history was written by a maester like 100 years after all of this happened, and he drew from 3 histories. 2 of them were 50 years past by the time this guy was writing them. I mean, they wrote them 50 years after the events of the story, but the third voice is Mushroom, who was a small person who was a jester for Rhaenyra. He talks a lot of crap about Rhaenyra, but he's also very unreliable because he's known to be a liar. So none of them are reliable voices as a history. So what you're seeing is the real story, I guess. Like Rachel asked last week here in the show, they're making you very sympathetic to blacks. A lot.
Right. Let's pause right here because Lois, I think it was, because it says someone tipped us $3.
Yay! Thank you, Lois.
Lois,
and
are
hi,
you here?
Everyone, she says.
So the first thing I noticed was they did not continue the tapestry with last week's events. We were talking about the last thing that happens is Arax and Luke getting eaten, and maybe they would.
I was hoping you'd say something about that because I didn't pay attention.
They did not continue it. It ended at the same place. Everybody on this show is the worst, except possibly Rhaenyra.
And Arik and Eric in their own way.
Yeah.
Everybody else
Massaria isn't too bad. Like, I totally am down with Massaria now that they've kind of taken her accent down a notch and made her more palatable.
Her French lady
I
accent?
really, really 100% think that she's going to end up being like Rhaenyra's Missandei was to Daenerys, right? Like her right hand. For one thing, I think she came back to tell them that was Eric and not Eric because she noticed.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I think that Rhaenyra's going to be like, okay, I trust you. So again, this is not something that happened in the books that I remember. One thing I am doing is after the episode, I'm going and reading that passage of the book where this particular stuff happened. So I'll be more prepared for the actual breakdown. Yeah. I didn't read it today because I wanted to keep that out of my head while I was watching it. But I do vaguely remember the Eric and Eric fight now that I've seen it.
Eric and Arik?
It's Eric and Eric.
It's Eric and Arik. They're different people, except they were born of the same body, but split in two. Anyway, hi, Heather.
Heather!
Hey,
She says not the
Heather.
twins.
I know. I'm sad. You know what the saddest part of the whole episode was, though? The little doggy crying for his stupid, mean master.
It's sad on multiple levels.
I
it kicked him last
I had a
time.
fear that once the twin fight was over, that whoever was alive still was going to pretend to be Eric and then gain her confidence and then kill her. That was my concern.
Well, maybe he figured.
Obviously, he isn't the one that lost.
And the other thing is, maybe
he killed himself.
Maybe he knew that deep down because I was thinking, he killed himself because he killed his brother. But maybe he also realized that Rhaenyra would never know which one was truly which and would never trust him for real again. So rather than live a life of shame where he was cast out because nobody would believe who he was, he just killed himself, which was really sad too because I liked it. I liked Eric and Eric. That's the same actor, by the way, playing both parts. Just
himself playing both characters. It's also interesting because it does play well with allegiance to blood, allegiance to kingdom, and what takes precedence. And he chose both in a sense. You know, he had to honor his brother, having to kill his brother by killing himself in a sense. I committed an egregious sin against my own brother against brother. And then he had to take his life. It's interesting too, because in a sense, you could look at it retroactively because he may have even slightly cast doubt on who he was. Like right from the beginning, not just because he just killed his brother, but just for causing this to happen to begin with. The possibility of his brother coming in and trying to take her out. It's like, sorry for causing you all that trouble. I'll see you later.
You know, you always hear that civil wars are brother against brother, and then you get the absolute visual embodiment of that sentiment that civil war is brother against brother. The way the books are written, they're very vague. There's no emotion or anything. Like, you put your own emotion into it. And you never really get a feel for most characters because you never know what to believe about them in the books. And they're very vaguely written. So they flesh the brothers out quite a bit. Like, you got to like both of them and you see both of their motivations. And that just makes it a little bit more gutting. The second saddest part of the whole show was little Jaehaerys with his head sewn back on.
Oh my God.
You can see the little
tell me that you felt this.
Neck.
It was definitely so, like in its own way gruesome, but in its own way, like it's the best they could do. When the cart got stuck in the
Oh my God. I was like,
oh my gosh. I was like, he's going to
That's what I thought too. I was like, oh my God, that thing's going to fall out.
Please don't.
Please don't have that little baby fall out of the mud.
I love that we all thought the same thing.
I was like, please don't. Poor Helena. Apparently, Aegon has gotten his mother's way with people because he just left Helena standing on the steps and just walked right past her. Their marriage was never one of love anyway. I mean, they're brother and sister. How much love could there be? It's the marriage of convenience. That was her baby too, you know? Although I think maybe he blames her because she was there and she didn't do anything. We talked about what was she going to do? She's a woman with no weapons or anything. And she's not all there anyway. So what in the world was she going to do? But I can see Aegon laying the blame on her. Because like most of the men in this show, he does not want to take any responsibility for himself and his own actions.
I want to hit on that in just a second, by the way. But you can also take this back to Eric and Arik, by the way, in that how far would you go to serve your kingdom / country / realm, as Otto put it, right? The good of the realm. And yet, maybe that's what Aegon is thinking when the queen chooses Jaehaerys and not Jaehaerys, right? Rather than the heir of the throne. It's like, you didn't lay down your life for the kingdom. Why? And what did she see, too, that made her choose Jaehaerys as well? That's me just wanting to know what she saw, the seer.
I'll just put it this way. The one that survived in the books did not have a great life. So just saying.
Any Game of Thrones thing.
None of the kids in this come out well. I'm just going to say that.
Right.
None of the children come out well.
The Lannisters came out well. None of the Targaryens came out well.
One thing I did notice, though, is the similarity between Kristen and Damon. Kristen, when he went in there and started berating Eric, I was like, dude, you are the worst person in the world. The worst.
Who's trying to make himself feel better
But you know what makes
by pinning it on somebody else.
Right. But you know what? For like a hang time, there was like this hang time where, first of all, he didn't go into his bed chamber. Not maid. She's like the queen mother. I was like, okay. Or there's a weight to what and she felt the weight doing this. I've sinned. She's scratching her neck. She takes off the jewelry because it's too heavy. And then, okay. And it was good.
Right back to it.
And then right back to it. Yeah, exactly.
Hey, man.
Worst.
The booty wants what the booty wants. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, there's something to be said about filmcraft, though, that they were able to just hang on to it for a hot second and it wasn't like immediate, like, oh, he's not completely awful. No, he is awful.
And Aegon making him hand. Oh, Aegon, you idiot.
That was great.
Yeah.
So
I was like, dude, why are you not picking that other guy who's like Littlefinger? Because that was really who I thought he was going to pick.
Right.
Well,
I like the subversion of expectations.
Last week, Larys was like, hey, Otto's, he was your dad's hand and the hand before that. So, I should be it. And Aegon took his advice, just didn't give it. Which I think that was impetuous. I think he was mad at Otto. So he's like, well, here, give it to Kristen. I don't think that was a plan or anything.
Well, not just that, but Kristen had acted. And he's all about this, like, I don't want to be a king of ink, is what he says. I want to be a king of blood. Because it's too much of the bureaucracy. He's like fed up with how long everything takes to be able to just get something done. Which, honestly...
Hey, not you too.
I have to say, like in this episode, I was like, maybe he wouldn't be that bad of a king.
Because of his choice. I mean, it's not the best.
Well, that and like, okay, yeah, the rat catcher thing seemed severe, right? But like he's trying to show his people, I am not weak and any plans against me will result in a tenfold response. And I was like, all right, dude, I can kind of get behind that. Actually, like, yeah, that was sad for the women who were out there and it's their innocent sons, but one of those dudes was not innocent.
But see, then that's where he messed up, because he could have easily taken each of the rat catchers down in front of Blood and said, which was it, this guy? Was it this guy? Was it this guy? But he, in a fit of anger, killed Blood, and so he didn't get the information he needed. He still could have executed the person that killed his son without taking out a bunch of innocent people.
Then maybe that's what he was going to do all along.
Which is what, I mean, that's...
But it's too much bureaucracy.
He just did what he was blaming Rhaenyra for doing, right?
Right. I was going to make note of that.
He turned around and made the same mistake.
That's this whole thing that's all of Game of Thrones is like, just constantly saying this person's doing it wrong, but you're doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it's hypocrisy. Everybody's a hypocrite.
And then also
Kristen is the biggest hypocrite of all.
All my kids grew up and married each other.
Kristen
is the biggest hypocrite of all.
Or you're the hero of your own story, or I'm blameless in this scenario. Oh, you can always find a way to shift whatever failings that you have onto somebody else. It's not me. I'm the pure one in action, not in name.
As much as I dislike Otto, he had the right idea. These are people who've never been in a war, right? This kid has no idea what a war is like. Yes, you just lost your son, but you are going to lose a whole lot more than that.
You mean Aegon. Right.
And Rhaenyra doesn't want a war. Damon kind of pushed him into that. He made a big mistake.
Well, it was nice to see Damon have some misgivings this episode.
But even then,
I'm a little shocked that we still let him reign unchecked, though. Like,
right. He still didn't take responsibility for what he did. He was like, it was a mistake. I didn't do it.
No.
I didn't tell him
and
to
you're
do that.
weak, just like your father was. He's horrible.
Every time Otto opened his mouth, it was impetuous son of a pap. Just saying,
no, I'm talking about Damon, dude. He said that about Rhaenyra. He says, you're weak, just like your father was, which is like just ridiculous to even say out loud. But I am just shocked that we're just like allowing him to just go off to wherever he was going. I forget.
Harrenhal. Well, supposedly.
I don't know. Put that guy down, man. He's a problem, and he's going to be a problem for you. He's going to be a real problem.
Aemon said, I regret Luke. And then he said, I take it as a thing of pride that they were after me. Do you think that's true, or do you think he feels any bit of guilt about the death of Jaehaerys because they were after him and they killed Jaehaerys instead? In the first season, when the baby died and Daemon was going around talking smack about the baby, and that's what made Viserys so mad at him.
Oh, I watched that. That's in the first
that was the
episode.
first episode.
Yeah, the Air for a Day.
Do you think that Aemond really is upset about the death of Jaehaerys, or does he see that as a line for him to get to the throne? Because now that there's no male heir, that Aemond would be next on the throne if anything happened to Aemond.
Does Aemond even have those
ambitions?
Yeah, he always says that he would be better on the throne, that it should have been him and not Aegon. He said that in the first season because he's the one that wants it. He's the one that's good at it, and Aegon doesn't even want it.
I'm going to just say up top, I don't think he has those ambitions. If things were murky, I think he would grab it, but I think when there is somebody in charge, he defers to them. But until such time that things are questionable,
well, I'm not saying he's going to go assassinate Aegon for it or anything, but
no, but he might be like Daemon in a way, then just kind of biding your time,
just like
waiting.
Daemon, because Daemon and Aemond are basically, even in the
mirror
books, Aemond talks about wanting to be just like Daemon. So he looks up to his uncle and wants to be like him. So he is like him a lot.
Well, I just wanted to say what Heather said earlier. She says, "Will we be reminded every episode how horny those two were?" Alicent and Sir Criston Cole.
They're the worst.
Listen, I'm digging it. Listen, as much as I hate it, I'm here for it.
What is it with psychopaths and milk?
So can we hit on that a little bit? Because his prostitute lady person, it looks a lot like Alicent.
Yeah,
it's like they're all looking for. Yeah, okay.
That's what I said earlier.
I think I must have missed it between glitches.
I said earlier that they're all looking for their moms. Like, he doesn't have a mom figure, so he's looking for one.
Mommy and daddy issues.
Right. Aegon didn't have much of a mother, apparently, because he doesn't know how to treat his wife. They just have mommy problems.
Yeah, and like you said, because I was going to touch on that too, when Alicent comes into the room, was it her room or was it Aegon's room? What was she going to do? What was she going to say to him? I'm actually curious what you guys think. She was trying to confess to her father, Otto Hightower, and he's like, I don't want to hear
By the way, let's have an Emmy for Rhys Ifans, because that monologue where he was screaming at Aegon was awesome.
Yes, I agree. But going back to what I was saying, what do you think Alicent was going to say to Aegon? Or was he in her room? I was trying to discern what was happening there.
I don't think they were in her room because Criston Cole was waiting in her room when she got back for them to bang. So he was probably in his room.
Then what did she do? Was it on the heels of her father not?
I think she was going
to hear it?
I think she was just going in to try to talk him down from Otto. Like she was saying, let me talk to him or whatever. I think she was prepared to find him angry and rebellious. And when she went in and he was crying, she didn't know how to handle that. Because that's not something you ever get out of Aegon, right? He's not a whimpery crybaby. So she didn't know what to do with that. How do I handle this from him? I can't deal with this right now. I thought he would be angry and that would give me something to play off of. But he's sad, and that's just going to make me sad and make me feel worse. So I'm going to go bang Criston Cole, so at least I have some joy in my life.
I don't think she expected Criston really after all of that. Well, that's why she hits him a few times. She's like, it's because of us, man. It's because of us. We could have stopped it.
Well, I think to some degree, again, because we like to shirk our own responsibilities, I think some of it is she's mad at him for the part that he played in her father's title being stripped from him.
Yeah.
To me, that's what she's mad about in that moment. As far as she is concerned, he is a big part of why that happened. And now he took that title.
You think, though? I didn't think that.
Why wouldn't you think that?
I don't think he engineered him becoming the Hand. I don't think anybody
No, that's Dave. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying she has that thought. You know how someone does something and it's like, it wasn't clear that it was 100% their fault, but you still blame that person, especially when you're in a relationship with them?
Yes. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's what's happening. She's blaming him for the part that she feels he played in that. The only part he played is that he sent a dude away. He didn't do all that much.
You're projecting. I see.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I'm like, he's still not getting it. I have to say it a third way, I guess.
Listen, I'm a guy. We don't expect people to blame us for things that we didn't do, and yet it still happens. Anyway, as far as Alicent goes, and I think you're right, Sharon D. I think she was prepared to talk him off our anger and talk him down. I think also she was protecting herself.
That's what I said, because if she went in there and tried to deal with him, it might even make her more likely to confess, which would be really bad.
That's exactly what I was going to hit on. And there's also another thing, because it pairs very well with the Arik and Eric situation about, the word is filial, but the idea that you have a feeling and a need to be connected to your family and pay homage to them and serve them and be their thing. And like, it's just so interesting to see this weird family of somebody who had a kid at such a young age with an old man, by the way, and then seeing that in front of you. And there's a part of me that goes, I don't know if there's a thing where she doesn't have the motherly instincts, first of all, but second of all, if she does have the motherly instincts, she's gonna spill the beans because you can't help yourself.
I mean, here's the deal, Allison. If you want to bang someone, go for it. You deserve it. He's not paying attention to what you're doing, so go have your fun. Stay out of the politics, and you'll be all right.
Allison, if only you knew what your boys were saying to you behind your back, both Aemond and Aegon, about how little they think of you. By the way,
I wonder how much she would like knowing that Aemon's banging someone who looks just like her.
The mother she could have been.
Gross.
The mother he desires
so
from her.
Gross.
Apparently, we have 37 people watching.
Wow.
We've got
what?
Yeah, we have a bunch on X right now. Which, because you're on X and not on our YouTube channel, you can't really say anything and you can't really react to this. You could only watch a set of boxes, by the way. Just wanted to say that much. Instead of our lovely faces as usual. If you have the wherewithal, jump onto our YouTube channel. The link is in the description. At least that'll take you to the first step. And you can hit us up from there and talk some smack. Like Heather is in the chat saying, I can't imagine seeing my son sobbing, overcome with grief, and not trying to console him. I guess that's the GOT way. There should be a song about that.
I have one little thing to bring up before we end. So when Helena picks up little Jaehaerys's toy elephant, that is a shout out to Cersei wanting the Golden Company to bring the elephants over. There are elephants in this universe, and the Golden Company does have them. And I remember Cersei was like, I thought you would have elephants. I wanted you to bring the elephants. There were a bunch of memes about it. So anyway, that's what that was.
How do you feel about the guy playing Otto, his massive soliloquy almost until he was interrupted by Aegon a couple times about the good of the realm and you impetuous prat? First of all, I was walking and I was just a little nervous because he was talking a lot of smack to the king. He was already on thin ice. I mean, for somebody who acts so smart most of the time and wheedled his way to be the hand of the king, first of all, he's not being so smart.
Here's the thing. You have been working on this for 20 plus years, okay? Moving and shuffling and doing this and doing that, keeping it all together for 22 years. And now your stupid little grandson has done the stupidest thing possible and is going to unravel the entire thing in front of your eyes. I imagine I would lose my crap too.
Do you think it was always going to go that way? That Aegon was always going to remove him as hand of the king, or was it because he was talking all that smack?
He was leaning that way anyway.
I mean,
and then Otto pushed him into it.
Put the seed in his mind, but then Otto could have chosen his timing a little better because Aegon's still very upset. But still, he did just ruin everything. So
again, it goes back to responsibility, though, doesn't it? This is what kills me about Otto's speech, by the way, about the good of the realm and blah, blah, blah. You care about the good of the realm as long as you could hold 4 plates and then swoop your 5th plate in, while you're spinning them at the same time and wheedle your way in.
There's only one Varys on this show, and that's Missaria. She is the Varys of the show.
Yeah. And then who does she work for? The Mother of Dragons? What is happening here? It just goes to show that Otto, as sophisticated as he is, as wise as he is, or whatever you want to call him, you could call him a lot of things, but isn't he, in some senses, not that much different? Sir Criston Cole. It's like the ghoul. Look what the ghoul says to Lucy in Fallout. Yeah, we're the same. Just give it some time. Because he's not taking responsibility for all the things that led up to this moment, too. All his scheming, all his plotting. If he cared about the good of the realm, he'd respect Viserys' wishes and his wisdom and judgment and not bifurcate the kingdom into 2 separate monarchies. He bears that responsibility.
This all falls on Otto is the one that orchestrated his daughter moving in on the king. He really is the hand behind all of it. But he also reminds me of Tyrion, because eventually Tyrion was tired of Daenerys. Like, you know what? I'm done with you, Daenerys, you crazy. Took off his hand of the king and threw it down his badge and threw it down the steps because he had enough of her whack, crazy, insane Targaryen self. Right. And that's kind of where Otto's at. Like, he's just tired of Aegon and his stupidity and having it ruined at the last second by just stupidity and not wanting to wait. Even if Aegon hadn't made him quit, I feel like he was to the point where he's like, I hate this job. I hate this job. Like, I am so tired of this job. I don't.
Actually, kind of reminds me of Ned Stark in a way. I don't really want this. I never wanted this in the first place, and then he paid for it. Okay, Criston Cole being named Hand of the King. We're obviously sitting here going, "What the f?" Right? What is going on? But there is something to what you said about better him than Larys, right? Larys Strong. I started thinking to myself, well, Aegon might be wiser than we think in a way, because if he considers Otto as a man moving behind this, just a string, the high towers are not to be trusted. They're just scheming and plotting and doing all this stuff. My mother included, etc. He and Aemon say something to this effect in the first episode already to catch us up. Who better than somebody who he can absolutely control? His own mother, Alicent, doesn't want chamber people to prepare the baths, to prepare her clothes, to undress her, all that stuff. So she knows already that Larys is not to be trusted. The fact that this happened under Larys's watch, because he knows that Larys replaced all the staff, and still this happened. So he's also sus on Larys as well. So then
I don't think so, because
so.
I don't think Aegon is that. I think he's oblivious most of the time. He's
too hot-blooded too. If he thought it was Larys's fault, he would have killed him.
And he never. So until he was actually named king, Aegon had zero interest in being king. He had no idea what anybody was doing or about anything. He was oblivious. So I don't think.
And now he'll never know.
I think he was.
I guess it doesn't really matter. I think the point I was making, like, choose somebody that you can absolutely control.
Criston Cole, everybody knows what he wants. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He wants to be respected and keep himself pure in everybody's eyes, anyway. But nobody knows what Larys wants. He's just sneaky and underhanded.
Do we know what Larys wants?
We have no
idea. I think
idea.
we got wind of that in the first season a little bit.
I mean,
some of his proclivities and whatnot.
Feet.
The Clubfoot wants feet. A little on the nose, boys, writers.
I think he just lucked out. I think Aegon just lucked out in this instance. I don't think he was like, Larys is the problem, I'm going to give it to Cole. I don't think.
No, I think it was.
This is he lucked out.
I didn't want to dwell too much on the Larys part more than the Criston Cole part.
Criston just happened to be there, and Aegon was angry, and he's like, you know what? Here, Criston,
this guy. And this guy got his twin to go after his.
Again, you're doing something and everybody else is just sitting with their thumbs up their butt.
Exactly. This guy did something.
He did something. He did something stupid.
That
but
interaction was so... I mean, of course I hated it because, of course, again, he's not taking responsibility, blah, blah, blah. And then now he's putting on... It's one thing if he put it on Rhaenyra not wanting him back and blah, 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 all that stuff. But it's another thing to take it out on... I don't know if it's Arik or Eric. And then making him go after Rhaenyra and possibly running into his brother, knowing that he'd have to kill him in order to get the job done too. That's next level projection and transference and all that stuff. And by all accounts, I don't know about you guys, I liked Arik and Eric. It goes to the first episode where they were right from the start, Craig and Stark going, duty and honor and good men will die by it in its service, etc. I don't remember the exact quote.
What's your favorite saying, Dave? We hate in other people.
Oh, you hate in others what you hate in yourself.
Yep. And I think
God, I left that huge impression.
Criston had some serious hate going on right there.
Yeah,
it was you were on duty, Eric.
You were on duty.
It was your watch, Eric.
Wow.
Well, not only that, but he like dirties his cloak to like pick a fight with him.
You were banging the queen, Eric.
Wait, what?
Wait, what? Hold on a minute. Just because I'm a ginger. Anyway, sorry, Bridget. And Rachel. I guess she's not here, but on the note of you saying Alicent can choose anybody else now, blah, 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 all that stuff. Well, Alicent now sees herself in the same position as Criston Cole, putting her crap, I'm unpure, I've done a thing, and I'm never going to fess up to it. I guess we'll all reside in hell together, basically. She's like, F it right now. That's it. We're done. We're done here, right? Check, please. Let's just F and please the fans who like to see us F, basically. But still get to hate us.
That vile snake Rhaenyra, dude, she turned you down 20 years ago. Get over it.
God, man.
He is such an incel.
Whoa, I thought for a second it froze on your face.
An incel.
You made a face like, get over it. And it just stuck there for a hot second. First of all, nobody can appreciate this, by the way, except for us. And I love it. I don't love it.
Well, Heather said that we see the same thing continue to play out when they put children on the throne. Their frontal lobes aren't even fully developed.
Give it 20. But, like most people don't make it to 25 in this
True.
show.
They're mostly dead.
I thought you were going to say historically, and I was like, that's not true. But in the show, that is true. Most people
in the
don't.
show, yeah, more specifically in the show, they don't make it to 25. I mean, Tyrion Lannister's like only 14. No, I'm kidding. He's not. Okay. You just can't tell.
Everyone looks really bad, too.
I played a 14-year-old very well.
Maester Pycelle was only 20.
now.
That's what you get when you work the night shift.
Oh my God. Wow. By the way, which is kind of funny because he plays off like an old man, and yet he was younger than he appeared. He was like very spry for someone who appeared to be an old man.
They did bring up Alicent's other son briefly, Daron.
Not Old Town, where Otto wanted to go, but was it in Old Town? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they mentioned the Tyrells as well.
I did like that.
To kind of keep up appearances with those mother effers.
Tell Cersei.
Oh, let's say what Heather said for a hot second. Because
tell Cersei this is going to ruin the tour.
The king of projection.
Oh, that you were responding to, Heather. We see the same thing continue to play out when they put children on the throne. Their frontal lobes aren't fully developed. Okay, so you're responding to that. Yes,
no, I literally read it.
Whenever there's a time clock, I get like real antsy, and sometimes I get blinders, and I don't hear. The blood goes to my ears, and also I don't hear women that
stressful for some reason. Women speak at a frequency that I can't quite hear.
I've always said that. It is kind of true. That's science, Bridget. That's science.
I know.
Literally science, by the way. It's such a tragedy too. And this show plays it out quite well, I might add.
We have a title.
Oh, we do? Okay.
Rhaenyra the Cruel.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't trust it. It's on Wikipedia, but
I'm going to say it's Rhaenyra the cow, as they said in the books.
One of my favorite parts was when she was, we didn't do this. I had nothing to do with this. It wasn't our fault.
And
it's a lie. And the side eye that he gives her, the side eye he gave her, I was like, oh, you're such a jerk, Daemon.
Rhaenys gives Daemon a look, and then the camera cuts to Daemon. And Daemon looks at Rhaenyra. He's looking at Rhaenyra, and all of a sudden he's looking at Rhaenys, and he's just looking back at Rhaenyra. I just love that small film.
Like a smirk on his face. He looks like such a jerk.
Like, wait, did you just catch me? Okay, I'm just going to look at Rhaenyra again.
I hate your
let
face.
me look back at Rhaenys. Let me look back at Rhaenyra. So uh-oh, I'm caught. I feel like that's a little bit of Matt Smith in there. Because he just...
It's like, I'm baffled by how much I can hate him.
I know.
I feel like...
But I hate him so much.
Damon needed a woman to put him over her knee when he was about 9 years old and just spank the crap out of him. His mom. He needed a mom. I don't know. Does he have mommy issues?
Do they all need a mom? Is this everybody's problem in all of Game of Thrones?
Yeah, he does. Well, then again, with the Targaryens, it's not an issue. I mean, except for Viserys, he did not like that was a possibility.
He also didn't like that they wanted to marry him to an 8-year-old. So, the man had some standards.
And then again,
didn't stop him from banging his daughter's best friend, but it's fine.
She was comforting him on his wife's loss. She was special. She's an angelic person. It's so funny that their kids do not see her like that for all of that.
Because it's not how she is. Opposite. That was totally fake.
Well, that all happened before they were born and before she got married to their dad. Which Aegon and Aemon both feel that their father didn't care for them as much as he cared about Rhaenyra. So there's always like that underlying jealousy feeling that they didn't mean as much to him. And that's another big problem that Aemon and Aegon both have.
And that's kind of real, though, too, like in terms of family dynamics. In real life, I mean, just having the natural born, whatever, the intended, always intended daughter, the first one, the woman he loved, versus the one who comforted him after losing the one that he loved, etc., and all that. It's just interesting to see that all the global politics that happen as a result of something that should be internal family dynamics, which actually kind of goes to show that, and I said this in the first episode, of course I like Rhaenyra. I do. I love Rhaenyra. I love her as a character. I love her wisdom. I love her as just start to finish, right? There is a little bit of mirroring when it came to the king speaks and somebody hears it, or everybody hears it, basically. And I compare that also to Rhaenyra. Like, you let this thing out, and then somebody heard it, and somebody did your will. And I'm not saying she's responsible for it, but there is something to letting your passions fly, and you being the person with the pen and the paper and the person people follow. And yes, you can compare grief and how she did it better.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue she's responsible because she said it out loud, but it's not even so much that as it is you're responsible for the people that you trust. and who you let into your inner circle, and you married the biggest D-bag in the world, arguably.
The queen consort,
but you also have
basically,
to
is
remember
Daemon.
that when she's been half in love with Daemon since she was a kid, and it's hard to unsee someone that you love and hero worship. But she's like, I never really trusted you, but I wanted to, and that's
Yeah, it was
right.
childish.
That's the thing. So she wanted to trust him,
Which is why I like her.
right?
She's just very
But
self-aware.
she's been I don't want to say conditioned, but she's been half in love with Daemon for almost her whole life. So it's hard to see past
Who is
that
this flirty uncle?
and see that somebody isn't the person you thought they were.
My bigger point in all this is that when it comes to the Game of Thrones, can you trust anybody? Really? You say one wrong thing, somebody takes it the wrong way and goes ham with it. The people with the best intentions might screw up your legacy. It just goes to show that sometimes it's not in your control. No matter who you trust, no matter how hard you trust them, no matter how capable they are.
No, you can't
Even
trust
the
your
most
family
wise
or
people
even your
will screw up.
spouses. You can't trust your family or even your spouses
No,
in this
because
universe.
power is at stake. Ultimate power corrupts absolutely. So if you have the access to that power, then you're going to try. Daemon was overlooked for the crown. Aemond is overlooked for the crown. He really should be the one that has it. The primogeniture is stupid. You're going to automatically put someone in charge who may not have the temperament or the hand for it just because they were born first.
Let's see what Heather says. I just watched an ep of GOT where Cersei tells Sansa not to love anyone but her children because it's dangerous. I think the same goes for trust in this universe.
If I was Alicent, I wouldn't even trust my kids.
It doesn't even matter who you trust. It'd be great if trust was enough, or
feel
loyalty
like-
was enough, or competence was enough.
I feel like Rhaenyra can trust her kids. She can trust Jacaerys, and she could trust Luke. But I don't feel like Alicent could trust any of her kids in any way. Maybe Helena, but Helena's just not all there anyway. So
okay, well, there's one more thing then. There's trusting Luke and Jacaerys and all these other people. But who's to say you should trust yourself? Because, I mean, you could be smart, you could be tactical, you could be even-handed, self-aware, all that stuff. That's not enough to get the throne. I mean, in this world. They don't know that. I mean, not really. Like, we know that because we're so smart behind a TV screen. We're like, oh, guys, you're doing it wrong. We're dumb because we think, oh, this person should be here. But like, well, who's to say? The rules here are very fluid. They're nebulous. And I bet Rhaenyra is doubting herself all the time. She's not saying it all the time. But after Luke, we can't forget about that, by the way. And Jacaerys kind of brings it up to his, what would it be? His cousin, I guess, in this episode where she's using the crossbow and all that stuff. Cousin, sister, right? I don't know. Daemon's
daughter,
wow.
so
Yeah.
cousin, sister.
Stepsister, cousin.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Cousin, sister.
I hate this family.
I'm not just saying it to make it up. I'm doing the math.
We had to be
in my
very
head.
specific, or else it just completely falls out of my head.
The Targaryen family tree is just a straight branch
so
down.
That is a meme. It's just a trunk with a couple hairy lines.
So I wonder, given the
also
incestuous relationship, if there is Targaryen blood in the Lannisters. They do have blonde hair. Given their propensity for incest, I don't know. I mean, they might have. It might have been mentioned somewhere, and I just don't remember.
Well, the Stark family line did. So who knows?
So then, okay, that's going to be something we should watch out for because, and we got a little Hugh this episode, whom you mentioned was a Targaryen, the bastard son Targaryen, I think it was that you mentioned, right? So what if the Targaryens dip their brush in many houses?
There's something coming up where having Targaryen blood is going to be important and possibly a benefit to people who have it. I'm not going to say what that is right now.
And are reaching for the throne, maybe?
I'm not going to say what that is right now. It should be coming up very soon because it's something that's pretty important. So
seems to be accelerating with Hugh and all the inflation that's happening, by the way. We're going to bring that up again because medicines are price of chickens are, was it 3 times the price now? Yeah, wow.
3 times, and she had to walk very
2
far
hours.
to find
She
it.
needs to do like Arya and be going out and catching her some pigeons. Have you a bowl of brown.
Some squab, as they say. I'm going to say goodbye to Heather and Lois, who tipped us earlier in the stream. Thank you so much, Lois. And join us for more. And folks who listen to us on Twitter, consider subscribing to our YouTube channel where you can give us your thoughts. The whole thing is about you and you joining in and you giving us your feelings and thoughts and all these lovely comments. See you next week so that you can add more of your feelings on these episode reactions to House of the Dragon. I've been your host, David Cameo, and I was joined by Sharon D, aka Blazy Gardner, and Bridget, ko-fi.com/punkybrewster. That's PUNKYBRUISETER. Dave here again, your faithful narrator, alerting you to the fact that you've just listened to the reaction live stream, which has been edited down for your pleasure. And now, without further ado, here is the full episode breakdown, which I sincerely hope you enjoy. I'll see you at the end of the episode. I'm your host, David Cameo, and I'm joined by Cosmom09, Rachel Burt, Sharon D, aka Blazy Gardner, and Bridget, ko-fi.com/punkybrewster. That's PUNKYBRUISETER. And today we're here to talk about House of the Dragon's second episode breakdown, where we talk about the finer points.
What was the name of the episode, Dave?
Oh, well, the name of the episode was Rhaenyra the Terrible.
Cruel.
Let me just confirm that.
That was
Rhaenyra the Cruel.
Rhaenyra the
Rhaenyra
Cruel.
the Cruel.
I was like, that wasn't right. We announced it at the end of the live because it popped up.
During the live, we were just automatically mistrustful because it's the Game of Thrones universe and we don't trust anybody anymore.
Oh, and it was on Wikipedia, so, you know.
It wasn't even on Amazon when you found out, by the way, because I looked afterwards.
I'm Rhaenyra the Cool.
You know, I didn't even see that until now. So most people can't see, by the way, when the episode goes out, what we decide to put in our name titles in the Riverside studio. For instance, Rachel is Iron Rod.
Iron Rod, he is the master of laws. He has the nickname Iron Rod because he is very severe when it comes to keeping the laws.
He's the sheriff.
Yes.
Yeah, he was in this episode.
When they were in the small council discussing what had happened.
When he was smashing the dioramas or the small council room?
No. When they
I
were
think after
when they
that.
were in the council room.
That was the very
because
beginning.
Alicent was there, Tyland was there, the Master of Laws, and then I can't remember who else was there. But anyway, the Master of Laws said something.
I think Laris was there.
Laris might have been there. And Aegon said, okay, Iron Rod, or something like that. So, yeah.
Okay. He was the guy who said the king may have many enemies. I thought it was Otto.
Yes.
And the circle is complete.
Thank you.
Got it.
Well,
Sorry.
it was a group effort, but you mostly knew it.
So the name of the dreamer who saw the fall of Valyria and therefore made the Targaryens move to Westeros was Danis, Danys.
Danis,
the dreamer.
Easily
I mean,
confusable.
Daenerys, Danis, Rhaenys, Aegon, Schmaegon, Baegon.
Schmaegon. He's so bad that he's not on the show.
Second correction is Alan and Adam of Hall are Corlys's bastards, not Corlys's father. It's been kept quiet out of respect for Rhaenys, so Rhaenys won't find out. But
so those two are his kids, not his
Right.
brothers.
His siblings.
Okay.
Right.
And seems like Adam says to Alan, as they're jabbering about, he owes us. In the last episode, Corlys implied that he owed Alan for saving him. But when Adam says us, I remembered what you said in the last episode, which implies that they know that they're the bastard children of Corlys. Corlys doesn't know.
I'm really curious as to what the reaction is going to be when they find out that Eric and Eric are both dead, and what Rhaenyra's steps are going to be next, because they just tried to kill her again. That wasn't even hidden. That was pretty straightforward. He pulled out a sword and tried to stab her with it.
Kristen's going to double down. I feel like he's like coming unhinged. And if Aegon is going to give him more power, like if he's naming him the Hand, it's going to be a terrible decision.
Something I picked up is that Queen Alicent is now staying in Rhaenyra's old room. So while Kristen Cole is standing guard outside of her room, he's in the same place he was when he was standing guard for Rhaenyra. And he's making the same mistakes he made with Rhaenyra in that room. When Alicent comes in at the end and he's on her bed, him being named Hand was almost like Jon dying and coming back to life. He's no longer a gold cloak, so he is not bound to that oath anymore. Just like Jon was not bound to the wall after he died and came back to life, because he served until he was dead, and then he came back and he was no longer bound to them. So don't think he wants to tell Aegon about it, because Aegon's a little unstable.
He's being prudent. Don't reveal it to the kids too early. Okay, let me just start with this. When Otto is talking to Alicent, now Otto says, Kristen Cole, peacock feathers, that's what they all are, and squawking and peacock, squawking. And peacock, he doesn't say squawking, I say it. Alicent comes to his defense. just like Kriston in the last episode did for Aemond, which is informative. It tells us a little something about how they feel about one another. And I feel like we can drill down on this and then I'll move on. Do you think that they're in love? It's a tough call, right? Because their whole thing was created in this weird space.
I'm going to say the same about Alicent that I said about Homelander when we covered the boys. Does she even know what love is?
Does anybody?
I don't know if anyone. Yeah.
Well, I want to know what love is, and I want you to show me.
I knew that was coming. She doesn't know how to comfort Aegon. Her dad doesn't know how to comfort her or refuses to. In such a stark contrast to Rhaenyra's family, who the instant Jace came back, she was hugging him and comforting him, and he was comforting her. The Greens have none of that. And it stems from Otto, but it also stems from Alicent, because she's never had a real family life. Like, she didn't love Viserys. She was forced into that marriage by her father. Because
That's
you got to remember,
basically
women in this time have no agency. So when they try to take any agency, they get ruthlessly shut down, like they're trying to shut Rhaenyra down. So Alicent had no real agency. She had to do what her dad wanted her to do, which was marry Viserys so that he could control the throne. And he thought that he could do the same with Aegon.
So Otto could control the throne. Now, you don't mean directly, you mean indirectly.
Through.
Just want to be clear.
Right, through his daughter and through Viserys. Because Viserys didn't give a crap. Viserys wanted to sit in his room and tinker with his little model. He had no interest in ruling. That was Otto. So Otto...
You're saying so many things that I want to comment on. It's so funny. But no, I don't disagree. I think it's great.
Right, so I feel bad for Alicent. She's never had real happiness. And her kids were not born out of love. Her kids were born out of duty. Whereas Rhaenyra's children were born out of love, especially with Harwin. I think she and Harwin really loved each other.
Well, I do feel like Alicent had love for Viserys. Yes, it was an arranged situation. And I mean, hell, if you're going to get forced into a situation, well, I mean, the king ain't a bad deal. But I do
agree with what you're saying, but like...
I really love that take.
Like, so remember when we got to see her and Viserys having sex last season? How she just faced it as a duty. Maybe there was love, but there was no passion. There was no love there. She loved him.
In love.
Correct. So she's never had that. I dare to say that Otto probably was not super loving towards his wife. She's probably never even really seen two people be in love.
Do you think Viserys was loving towards Alicent, though? I'm just trying to figure out one dynamic at least.
So Aemma was the love of his life. He didn't want to remarry. He didn't want to replace Aemma. So I think even for him, it was a duty. He needed a boy to go on the Iron Throne. He married Alicent because he had duties too. It wasn't what he wanted. He probably loved her more like a daughter. And in reality,
I wanted to touch on a couple things that you said along the way, and that was, okay, so one, does Alicent resent Otto to the point of actually being angry with him? Because I've been feeling a bit of an undertone in their interactions, that it's not a full, kind of to your point, they don't know what love is. They just know that love for them is an exchange of duties. There's like this filial obligation to their love, meaning, and that's valid. People have that and do that. And sometimes that's the way in some cultures like mine in the Middle East, there's a duty to your family. And that's how you show love. But still, there may be a resentment towards her father for everything that she's been put through.
I'm sure there is. I actually, now that you say that, think that that might be where a lot of her animosity towards Rhaenyra is coming from. The animosity that she can't... she and Kristen are perfect for each other. They both project. Neither one of them can take responsibility for what they've done. But here's the thing with Alicent. Again, women don't have the agency that men do in this world. She did her duty. She had her children. She didn't cheat on her husband. And now she's just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to be free and have my own life. Viserys is dead, but her duties are still forcing her to stay where she is. So Kristen Cole is like the only outlet that she has. And who else can she trust? She couldn't trust anybody else in there to be banging them. Somebody would blab, but she's fairly sure that Kristen won't. Mutually assured destruction.
Who cares, and why would anyone care who Alicent is shipping?
Okay, so
I try to hold it in.
Well, first of all, she's supposed to be a paragon of virtue as the queen.
The Dowager
What?
Queen.
But she has kids. Clearly, she
but those are from her husband. Put yourself back in medieval times, where if men were allowed to fool around as much as they wanted to, nobody cared. But women were ostracized, or worse, if they were caught to be sleeping around, because they're supposed to be saintly and paragons of virtue and upstanding for their children. Like, they're supposed to bring their children up to be God-fearing people in this case. Because Alicent's also very pious. Notice her 7-pointed star and all the 7-point stars she's had put in there for the 7. Different 7, not
the 7.
Not the 7.
Not the boys' 7.
She thinks that she's responsible for the death of the baby, that the gods are punishing her for sleeping with Kristen Cole. It's just crushing that Otto won't even hear it from her.
Oh, so let me hit on that. I feel like when he says that, it's the exact opposite intention. And it's obviously, you can look at it both ways, but I think he's like, there's nothing that you can say right now that A, would disappoint me, and B, you have nothing to apologize for in a weird way. That's how I read that.
I took it more as, I got my own problems. I don't want to hear yours.
Of course you would.
That's how Otto is.
He's a man.
Thank you.
But I read a little. I see now. That's what I took from what your meaning was. But what he said right there, in the way I'm interpreting it, I'm starting to see a different meaning to why Otto does all of this. I think he genuinely thought that his duty, either for himself and maybe, or his own ambition, was to be one of the key stones in holding the realm afloat, let's say. He wanted to be a part of the solution.
He wants to be the hero. We talked about this on The Boys.
I don't need to hear it, or I don't want to hear it. I took it as there's nothing you need to say, nothing you need to apologize for. In that moment, with all the disdain he has towards Aegon throughout this episode, which was amazing, will you pair that with his interaction with Alicent? And then I got a bigger picture. I'm not just doing it for the realm. I made you go through all of this because I'm doing it for you, too. I'm leaving something for you. I wanted to do this so that you would be a part of this vision, too. It's not just for me. Because it's hard to rationalize Otto's motivations.
Well, here's another way to look at it. Plausible deniability. If you do not tell me what's going on, I can't tell anybody else.
Good point. I wanted to say something else. When you were talking about the different expectations we have towards men versus towards women, isn't it great that we all think the same thing with respect to this? We put agency on the women. It's hard for us to extract ourselves or to put ourselves in the place of folks who don't in the show, or at least the societal expectations. At least it was for me, because when you're seeing the women doing the things, I'm treating them as equals. So I'm getting, hey, you know what? You're a little responsible too. It's so easy for me to forget that this world isn't great, and I have to keep reminding myself.
In season 1, when Rhaenyra was young, and Daemon took her out to the brothels and turned her on and then dumped her in the brothels. Nobody ever blamed him for that. He got off scot-free. Who was the one that got punished ultimately for that? It was Rhaenyra, not Daemon. It's always like that, especially in medieval history. It was always on the woman. She had a baby out of wedlock. It's her fault. Well, what about the dude that was banging her that made that baby out of wedlock? But that even goes on today with single mothers. You have to take a man to court to make him pay for a baby that he made. And even today, people look down on the women. This isn't real world, but it's set 1,500 years ago, medieval England.
In the image of medieval times, right? But I wanted to just tag on that just a little bit, which was, yes, we give these women agency, and yes, we forget that that's what society is. But the mark of how good this show is, and it pairs well with he who has, or she, who has the power, or can claim the power and execute it, or enforce it, or have people follow it. That's where the seat of power lies. And so there's this weird, interesting, confusing, but also awesome that we can get confused like this. The show depicts society as such, as you've described. However, it also shows how women will take the power, or they will claim agency.
In royal families, the small folk women aren't doing that.
Oh, but wait a minute.
Unless you have someone like Massaria, who's turned herself into a master of whispers, but in general,
and the brothel madam, by the way,
right,
which is
right. But in general, women can't break out of those. But again, you see, what is she? You know, you could be a washerwoman or you could be a brothel keeper. That was it.
But that's the thing. Like, even men or women aside, it's interesting to see that Hugh the Hammer, whom we see in this episode again, which Rachel seems to really love.
I mean, with a name like Hugh the Hammer, how can you not?
The hammer.
The rod. Anyway, so across all vectors, even if you are of the common folk or the mid folk or whatever it is, you never know where influence is going to come from in the show. But taking it back to women, be the best that, or like you said in the case of Missaria, she made something from herself. If ever a mate that Damon chose, he chose wisely because he chose someone that was like himself, forged her own path up into a point, and she grabbed the ring, and the ring burned her house down, basically. I'm talking about the high towers. It's just interesting to know that the show takes a concerted effort to show you what society depicts or what is expected of people in society, but also confuses you because they don't care. A lot of people don't care. And the most interesting people don't care. And it's not even exceptions. Everybody effing does it. Almost everybody that's interesting that's shown on the show. Maybe to your point, we shouldn't forget that most people can't, or most people never make it to be able to wield influence.
Royals, they say that they're going to help the small folk. In reality, they're not. What are they doing? They're pushing a war that's going to end up hurting everybody.
You might say it's like modern day politicians.
Yeah.
Shuffling paper. Yeah. Nothing's changed.
I mean, audience, do with that information
what you will.
Doesn't matter what side you're on. We can all agree on that.
So here's something to keep in mind. In the books, my standard disclaimer, remember that the books are not factual. They are 3 histories written by unreliable and biased people, collected by an unreliable and biased person. So it's not necessarily true. It was pointed out clearly that Damon is a pedo. The brothel keepers knew that he really liked the young virgins, and they would keep the youngest aside for him personally. Keep that in mind, all you Damon lovers.
I hate him so much already.
That is not me.
Maybe I'm getting my facts wrong, but did they not show that in terms of Aegon in the first season?
Yes. This is going to be a slight spoiler that I'm going to say here, so I'm going to keep it as bland as possible. If you remember the little boy with blonde hair that was in the fighting pits in the last season,
yes.
That has been confirmed to be a character that will show up and be very important later. That's all I'm going to say about that.
So many characters that will be important later.
Did you notice in the brothel that they were very clearly showing a blonde whore that was dancing
in the front?
Clear. That was just to remind you of all the Targaryen offspring that populate the brothels in the streets of Flea Bottom.
Didn't she look really familiar?
Yeah, she had like the Daenerys' wig, basically.
No, her face looked really familiar.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I felt that too, but I wanted to say this because so many options to choose from, and yet they choose their sisters and brothers.
Oh,
just saying.
Well, they got to keep that bloodline pure, man.
No, but there's so many Targaryens around, you know.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's all I'm saying, Rachel.
I see what you're saying.
There's Hugh the Hammer.
Just because your hair is not silver does not mean you do not have Targaryen blood. As obviously seen by Jace and Lucerys, because their hair is clearly not silver. So you don't have to have silver hair, but if you do have silver hair, chances are you're related to a Targaryen somehow.
I was just making a joke. She took me seriously.
Do you think the connection to the dragons are more powerful if you have silver hair versus brown hair?
No, because we saw that with Jon Snow.
Yeah, I thought you were going to ask something else, and I was going to be like, I plead the fifth on that. I can't really say it.
I thought you were about to say, do you think they take a blood test? I know, it's like, I don't know why I thought you were going to say that.
Maury shows up, and they do the whole thing.
You are not a Targaryen. No! I want my own dragon. Maybe.
Just remember also that Damon brought up last season that there are wild dragons out there. Just keep that in mind.
Oh, on an island, right? They come from an island?
There's 3 wild dragons. There's Cannibal, Grey Ghost, and Sheep Stealer.
Are those names or like types of dragons?
No, those are their names.
Oh,
those
okay.
things.
Yeah, for sure.
One of them, I think, lives on Dragonstone, and then another one lives on a different island or something like that.
Is one of them voiced by Sean Connery?
It could be.
The dragon.
So a cute little hint when Adam was on the beach and he was digging up the clams and he looked up in the sky and saw the dragon flying. That was Sea Smoke. That was
Oh, I thought it was
Rhaenyra,
Bela.
Valarian's dragon.
Laner. Who's Laner again?
So
Rhaenyra is
Was Bela on that one?
no. Bela is on Moon Dancer, who was like a green dragon. This was
Okay.
Sea Smoke. Rhaenyra is Rhaenyra's technical husband, the one who died.
Right,
Yeah.
who's shuttled away.
Right. So that's his dragon, and there's a reason.
I
that
assumed it was Moon Dancer or whatever.
Bela. Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
now that Rhaenyra is gone, he does not have a rider. He can be claimed by someone else. There are several dragons that do not have riders right now. Dreamfire is Helena's dragon. Caraxes is Daemon's. Syrax is Rhaenyra's. Meleys is Rhaenys's dragon. Vermax is
Jace?
Jacaerys's. Arax was Luke's. Moon Dancer is
Bela's.
Bela's.
We're getting good at this. Right.
Valerion is the Black Dread. He's no longer around. Quicksilver, I think, is one that does not have a rider. That was Queen Alysanne's dragon. I think Quicksilver's still around. And Meraxes, I think, is also still around. Tessarion is Daron's, who we haven't met yet, but he has a dragon named Tessarion.
That's Allison's kid in
Right,
not
in Old Town. Correct. And then we have Sunfire is Aegon's dragon.
Who does Aemon ride?
He rides Vagar.
Vagar. That was so close.
Vagar was ridden by Visenya, who was Aegon's sister wife. And then we have Vermithor, who is also still around.
Lena? Wasn't that her name?
Right.
Laner and Lena.
Lena
Yeah.
rode Vagar until she died. That was a great episode.
Yep.
Remember when Aemon
It was,
fought?
yes.
Yeah, when Aemon took the dragon.
Yeah, that was a
I've
great
lost.
episode.
Yes, don't worry, mother. I've lost an eye, but I've gained a dragon. That was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, then we have a couple more that haven't been talked about yet. Morning is Rhaenyra's, which is Bela's sister, Bela's twin sister. Morning is her dragon. I don't
they're
know if they're-
twins?
Spelled
Yes.
how? Moou?
Like, hello, it's good morning. We're seeing the sun come up. Yeah, like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
MOR.
So
I didn't
there's
know they
lots
were
of dragons
twins.
to come. Yeah, they were twins, Bela and Rhaenyra. There's a lot of twins in this show, and so far none of them have had a whole lot of luck.
Okay, so I wanted to drill down on that before we just buckshot towards the rest of the episode. Arik and Eric. On further examination, it almost was convinced that the one who won that fight was Eric, not Arik. Arik is with the Greens. Eric is with Team Black.
A for Aegon. Eric.
Right.
Arik for Aegon.
That was hard for you, wasn't
it?
Okay. So I raced through the episode before we got on, and I didn't stop for anything almost. But the fight scene I wanted to take a closer look at, because on further examination, it actually looks like Arik might have won that fight. I wanted to know what you thought.
I like the ambiguity. I like not knowing who it was. It just is a little layer of mystery.
Both work.
Right, exactly. Because I could definitely see Arik falling on his sword after killing his brother. Maybe he realized, man, this wasn't worth what I did.
He failed. That's the thing. Even if he were to get up from that fight, like there's already someone else in the room. He's already failed because his goal was to go in unknowingly. It was supposed to be a covert mission. And so he failed already. I could see him falling on his sword for that. But yeah, it works both ways. So you don't need to know. That's the coolest part about it.
But on many dimensions, it works.
That they left it so ambiguous. Shows just don't do that, where they just leave you with no answer. I love it.
and
Walking Dead does it all the time.
I tried to pay attention to because Arik's leg gets cut first.
Eric's.
Is it Eric's leg that gets cut first?
Yeah, it's Eric's on the knee.
See, there's
That's
no
the
keeping
one
track
thing
of
that
it.
I knew would differentiate with them, by the way.
There's no keeping track of it. But anyway, and I think that the person who kneeled at the end had their leg cut. But did they both end up getting their leg cut?
The camera switches make it very difficult, which normally would be a problem because geography, you want to get a sense that you know what's happening to the best of the DP's ability. But in this scenario, it works so well because it makes you think you know. And then it's that whole cup game thing where you really don't know where the ball is. Sharon, you picked up what I was dropping because that is the right answer, in my opinion.
I did think that it was Arik at the end, only because while he had him pinned down and he was like strangling him, he kept going at him like, you tore us apart. We were one. I thought it was Arik saying all this because we heard him say it 3 or 4 times before that.
You abandoned us.
Yeah. And he's like, you tore us apart. You're the reason, blah, 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 whatever. So that's the only reason I thought that maybe it was Arik. And then he went for the sword and I was like, oh, dang. Ugh. If he comes after her, like, then we know. And then I was like, what if he is just like, nope, I'm going to pretend to be my twin now and just stay here.
I thought
and like,
that too.
We said that on the live right after because that was like all of our fears. It was like, is he just going to stay and pretend?
I like how it ended, though.
Right. If it was
Yeah.
Arik, I think he was just so destroyed. Even his brother earlier said, we've 2 souls in the same body. You know?
That's what I was
In
going to hit on
different
next.
bodies.
I feel
Yeah.
like now that his brother is dead, he's like, half of me is dead. So in the books, there are several different versions of this. One version says that the brothers said, I love you beforehand, and then died in each other's arms with tears on their faces.
Oh.
And then the other one said that they didn't say anything to each other and just fell to fighting. And that Arik lived 4 days afterwards and died in pain, in extreme pain. So all of them, they're all over the place. So this was the true one, but we still don't know who really won, which I
Or
love
who
it.
really lost.
They both lost.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I was going to hit on the spooky beta-S of it because the twin souls, they even mention it. It's very mystical and all. I was thinking to myself, if one of them dies, the other becomes whole, just a whole person. And so it really was Eric saying this in a more whole person
I get what you're
as a
saying.
result of that death. That's kind of what I was thinking, which is beautiful. But in literal terms, in not real life, but sort of real life, it goes to what you said, what we all kind of talked about when it came to, was it Daemon was questioning Eric? Why didn't you slay Aegon immediately or during all this? And he said, I was sworn to protect all of you. And so when you guys do things, blah, 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 that also applies here at the end scenario. It's almost like, thank you for putting me down, Eric, because I didn't harm the royalty in the end. I didn't harm one of the family in the end. My honor and duty is intact. You put me down. It's kind of cool that didn't happen. He objected to Kriston Cole's plan. He said, duplicitous. Otto has the same reaction. We don't deal in duplicity. I think in a way it's beautiful that he got to keep his honor. He didn't get to harm somebody from the royal family. And duty was brought up in the first episode.
When you go back to the very first episode when we meet Craig and Stark, what did he say? Duty eclipses all, even blood. And for them, that was true because they were in the Kingsguard. They'd been brought up in the Kingsguard since they were children. That was all they knew. The other thing is, kinslaying in this world is like the worst thing you can do. It's on par with inviting people into your house and giving them salt and bread and then harming them while they're under you. Those two are like the number one things in the religion of the Seven that's the worst to do. So by killing his brother, he also probably thought he was completely damned anyway.
Right. Why compound it?
I knew you were going to bring up like the spooky aspect of it because there's a scene where they're walking the hallways, the twins, and one of them, Eric, turns as though he can sense that Arik is there. And I was like, Dave's going to bring that up because he's going to be like, that's unbelievable. But I will say
something else, actually.
There is some level of acute awareness for twins that doesn't exist in other relationships. Scientifically, it's been shown, and there's not much reasoning behind it that they've been able to like suss out like what exactly that is.
Yeah, there's no clear-cut evidence. But Sam Harris actually points this out when he talks about there's no free will in general for all people. And the reason why twins may be able to get some sort of sense with one another, a sense of one another or with one another, is because you're of the same branch in the same tree, let's say. And so you have the innate sense of what your twin might do because they are you, essentially. So what one would attribute as spooky beta-S or scientific psychological link could just be the fact that what would he do if he were me? What would happen? There's a bit of something to it because you have the same fundamental architecture.
While the Greens were lax, Kristen Cole didn't even put a guard on the royal family. The only one who had a guard was Aegon. Helena and the kids didn't have a dedicated guard. They talked about it. And I think maybe it's because the Red Keep is supposed to be impenetrable. But the Blacks are doing the same thing, because wouldn't they be on the lookout for Eric's twin?
I guess it goes to speak, though, to how offensive this is as this like duplicitous action. That's why everybody keeps saying like, this is not how we behave, because there are rules of order to war. And this is not one of them. This would be like a crime against humanity in today's standards.
If you're a Gold Cloak or a Kingsguard, it's even more so. You have to be the upper crust, the best of the best, the most trustworthy and the most pious to get that job.
Right. And Cole mentioned the purity. The Arik and Eric also, they don't want to harm the royalty. That's what they're sworn to protect. I wanted to speak about some other spooky Beta S. By the way, if you don't know what we're talking about, Beta is a character on The Walking Dead. And sometimes he heard things where he shouldn't have, or felt things.
He knew things he couldn't have known. Didn't make any sense.
Really, literally could not have known.
Yeah.
His visions showed him and spoke to him. Anyway, Rhaenyra, in that scene, is fidgeting, is restless. She's moving when she shouldn't. She feels like something's there. You got into my head, Sharon, when you talked about seers, and specifically speaking about Helena, who is obviously on the nose a seer. But this started getting me thinking that maybe Rhaenyra has a little of that in her. There was something about the scene and how it was filmed, what she was doing, why she couldn't sit still, why she sensed
just
something.
Found out that her husband had a little baby decapitated. I'm sure she's kind of upset. You have to remember, it's been like 10 days since Viserys died. Her dad just died. Her son was murdered. She lost her baby. And now her husband has just killed a little baby. And she's got to know that the Greens are going to be coming after her now. She even says double the guard, because they're going to come after us now. So I would not be sleeping either. I would be like, give me some milk of the poppy and let me sleep, because I would be freaked out. I couldn't even imagine being a mom. Because also remember, Helena is her sister. That kid was her nephew. So she is sitting there thinking about her sister. And we all know Helena is not Aegon. She is pretty innocent, not a schemer.
I think you pulled a me just now. Yeah, okay. I was wondering if anybody else saw what I saw or felt somewhat similar. Only because Arik was pacing around and she was pacing around. I thought the scene painted it out that way. Well, maybe to your point, maybe they could have somehow made that more clear. But then again, it's all to confuse Dave.
One of the details I really loved is all of the Targaryens play with their rings. Like when Aegon was crying, he was sitting on the stool playing with his rings. When Rhaenyra was worried, she was playing with her rings. When Helena was upset, she was playing with her rings. I just thought that was a neat tie-in that they all have kind of that same quirk. I want to touch on when Mysaria comes in to talk to Rhaenyra. That's one of my favorite scenes of this season so far, is their back and forth. And I wondered if Rhaenyra recognized her. It took her a while. But what I love is that Rhaenyra made the right decision in letting her go and upholding the word of her family and letting Mysaria go. She basically saved her own life. Mysaria wouldn't have been there to recognize that that was wrong one coming. But before she comes in,
she didn't help at all.
Well, she did. She told the guy, she called the soldier back and was like, "Sir." And that was how Eric knew that Arik was in the castle. She even said in the first episode, she told Eric, "Last time I saw you, there were two." So she recognized that they were twins. She knew.
No, I know she saw him, but I didn't see her all she said was, "Hold up a minute."
Yeah, and she called
and then the scene ends.
Well, you take that to mean that she told the soldier that was, "Hey, yo, this guy is the other twin. You better go check him out."
Oh, I guess I didn't take it that way at all. I was waiting for her to actually do something, and she didn't.
She ain't doing nothing. But it's how Eric was able to get there so fast, basically. Otherwise...
I saw what Bridget did, where he hesitates in the hallway and is like, I need to double back and go check on something.
But he knew, because he came into the room going, "Brother!" He already knew that he was in there.
The second somebody said something, aka Mysaria, to somebody else, probably.
She's going to end up being the hand. Or like her Missandei. Missandei was not Daenerys' hand, but she was her confidant.
Damn you, patriarchy.
I don't think that the people would take a woman hand.
I was thinking that as you were saying that, but I would see again, I'm putting agency where agency does not exist in society. It's a shame.
I thought you were raising your hand because you had something to say.
No, she picked up what I was dropping.
You're like,
for the record,
why are you holding your hand like this?
Ooh,
you
Mr.
weirdo.
Mr. Kata.
For the record, for the audio podcast,
I missed half of what she was saying because I was so distracted.
I was trying to make it really funny because I was like, are you going to say what I'm going to say? I was pointing to my hand as like, oh, she's going to be Hand of the Queen.
When Mysaria comes in and Rhaenyra is looking at the book, it is a book about Aegon the Conqueror. The first picture you see is Aegon and his 2 sister wives in the first picture. The second picture is Visenya on Vhagar, which is the dragon that Aemon rides now. That gives you an idea how old this dragon is. This dragon's like at least 160 years old, at least more than that. If you read the passage, it's about Aegon's inability to conquer Dorne when he was taking over Westeros. He never managed to conquer Dorne. And Kristen Cole is Dornish.
Right, as we mentioned.
Of course he is.
So, does this mean something for the future? Does this mean that Aegon and Kristen Cole are going to have an issue? That's what I read into it, why they showed that particular page.
You little, because I'd written in my notes, I had this passing thought. Okay, now that Kristen Cole is Hand of the King, it's paired very well when he's ballsy enough to show up in Alicent's room. We can be together now that it's not terribly forbidden. We don't have to sneak around as much. I can be a little bit more forward and not so, is it okay if I come in? All right. No. I thought to myself, does Kristen Cole have ambitions for the Iron Throne? Or will he?
He can't. He's not nobility.
Might makes right.
Well, and he's not going to get it going after Alicent. That's for sure.
I don't know.
She's past her childbearing years, dude. There's no heir with Alicent.
And it wouldn't matter anyway, because that child wouldn't be an heir.
Is she past her childbearing years?
In medieval England,
know that she is, but
are you going to be a 45-year-old woman having babies in medieval England?
Is she 45?
I mean, she looks younger than Aegon right now.
She was really young when she had those children.
So Aegon is 22 or 23, and she was.
Dude, what? He looks like he's like 11. Okay, not that young, but he doesn't look. He doesn't look that old.
She was probably 18 when she had him. So 30,
I wouldn't even
40,
say that.
something like that.
Do you know for certain, or?
Well, I mean, she was probably at least 16. 16 and 22, that's 38. She's still 38. Are you going to want to be a 38-year-old popping out a baby in medieval England?
I mean, there's what you want, and then there's what happens.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what you want.
Okay, let me just add this, because if you can have all these kids and they don't have any mental deformities because they're marrying their sisters and having babies, and this is all I could think about, by the way, with the Targaryens. Like, this blood must be great because no deformities, no birth defects, no, because you're having breeding with your cousins.
Let me drop some lore on you. You ready?
Oh, did I open up something?
In an old Valyria, way back, the maesters used blood magic to bind themselves to the dragons. Valyrians were a part of that too. The blood magic could also help to keep their blood somewhat pure. You do occasionally get like Rhaenyra's baby that died, that was stillborn, and it was supposed to be really hideous. Like I saw a picture of the model that they made for it that they ended up not using in the show, and it was pretty gross.
I think I showed you at some point too.
Yeah, so
I was like, oh, gross.
There's the blood magic occasionally results in dragon-like stillborn babies, but it could also do a lot to protect the bloodline from super craziness. You still get the Mad King, but then you also have your Jaehaerys and Alicent, who ruled for many years and were like great kings. They were loved by the realm. And then you have Viserys, who wasn't crazy. He was a Targaryen, thinking that the blood magic protects their bloodlines. Every once in a while, you have to pay the price. Daenerys, if we're going to go that far, her baby was born with a tail and wings.
In the books.
You know, on the show, they didn't show it, but even the midwife who delivered her said that it was a monster with leathery wings and stuff.
Oh, actually, so this goes to your comment about the Lannisters and how maybe they had some Targaryen blood as well.
The history of Westeros itself.
Turning to Rachel.
Has like 10,000 years of history. The Targaryen conquest of Westeros has only been a few hundred years. This isn't like, 133 or something like that? And it's 200 years before Daenerys. The Westerosi have been interbreeding the noble houses for 10,000 years. So there has to be some kind of inbreeding going on. Also, in the case of Tyrion, there were rumors that Tyrion was really part Targaryen and that his mother, Joanna Lannister, had actually gotten pregnant by one of the Targaryens. So there was rumors that that's why Tyrion was so deformed, was because he was part of the Targaryen bloodline. That's why he could approach the dragons in the dragon pit and they didn't try to attack him or anything. It was because he had Targaryen blood in it.
Very subtle nod. Oh, I like that. And I'm glad I brought it up.
When Aemon goes into his room and he sees the map with all the coins gone, and he picks up the one coin and he holds it in front of his good eye. In mythology and in history, the dead had coins placed on their eyes so they could pay the ferryman to cross the river to that land of death. That was just a little shout out to Aemon. Something happened to Aemon that he now has both of his eyes covered.
Interesting that may be foreshadowing of his death.
I liked that they showed the table again. They showed them pulling the
candles out?
The candles out from under the table again, and the table going dark.
The big map table
in Dragonstone. We suddenly transported ourselves to Dragonstone. No, but I liked it in the first. I didn't notice it on the second watch because I'm darting back and forth. Didn't want to pause. Didn't have time. But yes, I agree. Who doesn't like cool effects?
If you remember when they're doing the procession, Helaena is a dreamer. Has she seen the end of the Targaryens? Has she seen the end of King's Landing? When she sees the petals falling, is she seeing that as ash? Has she seen the end? Does she know what's coming?
Or the end of Game of Thrones, in a sense?
Yeah, that's what I meant. That was when they destroyed King's Landing.
Oh, you son of a bee!
Just like Daenerys saw the ash in her dreams when she was having the dream and she was in the throne room and the ash was falling. And we didn't know if it was snow or ash when we first saw it. Is it snow or is it ash? So it could be Helaena seeing the future. And it's also interesting that when Rhaenyra was looking at the dust, it was kind of the same effect when she was looking out the window and there was the dust motes. But if you look really carefully, you see a dragon in the distance. Just a tiny little speck of a dragon flying in the distance.
Is that the spare dragon that's flying around Dragonstone that you said is in the books?
It's so far away you can't tell. I mean, you really can't tell because it's just a tiny little speck that she's looking out the window and you can see it.
Okay. By the way, I was smiling because I had written this down. There's a concerted effort when Aegon knocks down the incest pedestals. Aegon's hitting all the dioramas and ash is flying everywhere, debris, etc. So throughout this episode is the imagery of the ash. And I wasn't going to bring this. Okay, I'm just telling you right now. I wasn't going to bring this up. Sharondy opened the door. And so I wanted to know what you thought that was. And now you kind of close the loop on that. That ultimately alluding to that this is the start of the fall, essentially. You had all these wise kings.
Let me just say this. The Targaryens do not fare well after this.
This is the first domino because, like you said, in the history, they're all pretty great, essentially. This is not the Mad King. Mad King comes after this.
Well, they had one who's called Maegor the Cruel, but he
was just cruel. He had many bad days.
The feeling is that Helaena is like Bran. He sees bits and pieces, but he doesn't have the context.
Bran Stark, to be clear.
She doesn't have the context to put these visions and stuff into play. She has no way to communicate what she's seeing. It's bits and pieces. The other thing is she's stitching his death shroud.
Before he died.
Right. Last episode when Aegon came in looking for the little boy and Helaena was stitching, she was stitching his death shroud. And it has an owl on it.
Can mean a lot of different things. They can be harbingers of death. Just because she was stitching it in the previous episode, is it only a death shroud or could it have just been like a blanket that she chose for the processional?
Knowing Helaena, and she might have seen it coming, and she may not have known why she was doing it. She just needed to do it.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It's like Jim in The Walking Dead when he digs all those graves and he doesn't know why he's doing it. And at the end, he goes, I remember what my dream was now, after everybody dies.
And poor Helaena, I mean, nobody living right now has ever experienced a seer or a dreamer or like has any sort of knowledge that can help her discern anything.
Right. Well, they
she's
just
seeing
they just think she's an enduring mystery.
Right.
That's just Helaena. Like, don't pay her any attention.
She's just being weird again.
Right. I was so sad when she was walking up the stairs and Aegon was coming down the stairs and he just looked at her and they kept walking and she nodded her head like, yeah, that's par for the course. I deserve that. She has to feel bad because she pointed out her son. Right?
That's what I felt like that was.
Yeah.
Like he blames her, but she accepts that blame.
But in doing so, she saved the other son.
Daughter.
Yeah.
Whatever. Child.
So instead of choosing Jaehaerys, she was saving Jaehaera. This actually answers my question a lot better about why she chooses Jaehaerys, because I asked that question in the full episode breakdown, and actually it was going to go the way it was going to go, according to Helena. That seems to me more of like a weird, spooky answer.
Also,
but, like, I'm okay with it.
when Aegon came looking for Jaehaerys, if he's gonna be king, he has to know what goes on in the small council. And she's like, what if he doesn't want to be king? She may have known, but she just didn't know that she knew.
And by the way, it pairs well with what you said about Bran Stark. If I remember right from Game of Thrones, he was very resentful about being crippled, and then somebody had said to make him feel better that maybe there's advantages to this. And true to form, it allowed him to focus more on his seer ability.
He said, you won't be able to walk anymore, but you'll be able to fly.
Exactly that. And what's sad about Helena is that she doesn't have that advantage one would see is a disadvantage. So she is
no
basically,
guide.
well, like Bran Stark was a prisoner of his own body, Helena is a prisoner of this quote unquote gift.
Maybe if Rhaenyra had been her mom instead of Alicent, because Alicent, she is so distant from her kids. It's sad. Again, I think that stems from the distance of her father. She doesn't know how to be a parent. And I also love that was her first thought. She was like, the baby is dead, but what they did to my daughter, how can Helena ever live with that? She had to choose as Sophie's choice. She had to choose one of her children to die.
Well, I'm glad she showed that much concern for Helena.
The other thing that really got me was when Alicent told Helena that they had to ride in the carriage, and Alicent said, sometimes we have to pretend. And Helena said, why? Isn't that relevant even today? Like, how many of us pretend to be something or to be the person that we're not in public?
Especially when it comes to stuff like this, when it comes to like the really hard stuff, and when it comes to like death. That's when we get the weirdest about everything. It's all this pretense and like keeping up appearances. And honestly, it's not just the person grieving. It's like the people on the outside too. There's like these weird expectations. I remember like anytime I know anyone now who like has a parent die, I always try to like give them this warning. I'm like, just so you know, when you go to that funeral, when you go to that wake, people are going to show up and they're going to act like you have to console them in their grief. Why? I don't know. It makes zero sense. You're the one who's grieving. You should be the one receiving the kindness of others. And yet they will come and try to lean on you, the person really, truly going through it. They will come to lean on you. Like you have to say something to make them feel better. And I remember being really furious about it after my dad passed. So I like try to give that warning when she's like, why? Why do we have to do this? Like I felt that so deeply because it's like, why do you have to do this? You lost a child. Like, why do you have to parade him around in front of everybody to have these people act like they care? They didn't even know him.
The people want to be close to you. I don't want them close to me. I don't know them.
And they didn't know him. They do not mourn your loss the same way that you do.
But they want to.
Well, sure, because they want to feel like they're part of the royal family. They're part of the royalty. The royalty cares about them. And so they care about this little baby, which of course any little baby
people do this with celebrities now.
We've seen what happens when you don't appease the kingdom. And we see this today also with the royal family. They're all but an anachronism in England right now, in the UK. But for all the criticism, people can't bear to march them away into the annals of history. There is a weird relationship between
because they
authority.
In all intents and purposes, the royal family are figureheads because Parliament rules England.
Yeah.
They're just something for the people
in
to
all
look
technicalities.
At. Well, I think somebody in this podcast has said it before. Celebrities are our royalty because we don't have royalty in America. So that's why we look up to celebrities in the same way. We follow everything they do. We want to know about their kids. We want to know why we haven't seen pictures of them in 3 months. We want them to come out and say, oh, I'm okay, even though I just got cancer. I'm fine. People, don't worry about it.
But we should be disgusted by that.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. Those people don't owe you anything. Like, I understand that, like, we help them have the lives that they have because we support them in whatever they do. But they do not owe us anything in return. The work that they do is what we get in return. That person is not your friend. I'm going to hold your hand while I tell you this. Love that for you. Love that for them. But baby, they ain't calling you after this.
They're not going to say, oh, how's your mom? Or, how things going?
They're
I
not
really
going to let you borrow their motorcycle.
No.
That's the rule. That's the rule. You'll ask them and they'll be like, are you crazy?
But here's the difference. In this show, the royal family does rule the country, right? So the people feel like they do owe them. But what they owe the people is stability and success, not showing their dead baby going down the street. They owe them food because they're starving, because they're blockading because of the war, but they don't owe them a dead baby in the street.
But it just goes to show that there is, in this scenario, an exchange of some kind or a bargain that people have with the royalty and the common folk.
But see, here's the thing. I don't feel like the people would have been clamoring for them to have this procession. This was Otto's idea.
Sure. Yeah.
Because he wanted the sympathy. But the people weren't out in the streets saying, oh, show us your dead baby. They were out there to support the queen. They look up to her.
Like a matriarch. Like they're, in this other sense, their mother of the land, let's say.
Blood didn't even know who she was. Remember? They don't know her. He's like, who is this? Cheese had to tell him it was the queen. It's not like today where they got pictures of them splashed everywhere. Like, they have no idea what the royalty looks like.
You're going to be surprised of how I compare this. There's a parallel in this episode when all the rat catchers are outside. And you have to remember, I knew you guys were going to complain about, and then you actually did do it in the last episode. Do you remember when Cheese kicks the dog?
Yeah.
Who is mourning the loss of his master on the wall?
That
but
dumb
Cheese's
dog.
Isn't that the same thing? There's something to be said about, despite everything, the dog still mourns his owner. We still have this weird master-servant relationship with some people. It's a greater allegory, though, isn't it? About what's going on with the kingdom, or what's going on in terms of interpersonal relationships with some people. Is Criston Cole the servant to Alicent? Alicent the servant to Criston Cole? And that's what I wanted to get to. I just used that example so I could segue back because I remembered what I wanted to say, which was, first of all, you all had something to say about, is he Dornish? He doesn't sound like a Dornish. And you're right. Game of Thrones is stereotypical. Doesn't matter. In terms of Alicent and Criston Cole, you had also said that she had read a book about how the Dornish swashbuckling men romanced the ladies, and Daddy Pascal was one of them and all that stuff.
Actually, it was the Dornish toad, and it was a woman who fought off Aegon the Conqueror.
Oh,
girls, get it done.
Anyway, so and this, what the men do is talk over the women. But still, when you said that, that triggered something in my head. Why does Alicent not love her children the way we want her to? That's really what it is we want her to embrace her children. We want her to be more motherly. We want an excuse for all of this. And we can all agree that maybe she is a little angry at her father for doing all of this. But it goes a step further. You can see Criston Cole as the Dornish prince she was promised. Even if it's not true that he represents the life she could have had. That's yet another reason why they're both devils and they are in hell and they've chosen to be those devils. As long as we're here.
In the first season, when she was a young girl, Criston gave her his favor at the joust. So she's had a mad crush on him for years. And then she got
forced. And that's a defining childhood memory.
He gave it to Rhaenyra.
Oh, okay. You clear that up. Thank you.
She did, because he takes off his helmet. She's excited and she goes, oh, he's Dornish. Like, she's so excited about it.
This is what I'm basing this off of, by the way, is that defining childhood memory of seeing that on display.
Rhaenyra doesn't even really seem that interested. Like, she doesn't even really care, which just goes to show like how the relationship went. I'm sure Alicent was super pissed. Rhaenyra and him had like a little thing, and she didn't get that chance. And so now she's living out fantasy.
She blamed it all on Rhaenyra. She's like, what she tells Rhaenyra is, you can't put yourself in positions where your virtue comes into question. And now she's doing the same thing. And she's old enough to know better. That was when they were teenagers.
See, and that's the thing. She was robbed of her childhood. She was robbed of a normal, quote unquote, life, or at least a life that, people say they can have a life. Not her. And so what does a child do? Acts out.
Here's the thing. She's living in this time, in this world. Where did that lie come from? No, you weren't. You were never going to have the life that you wanted to choose. That's not how this works.
Again, Bridget, she did not see Game of Thrones.
She's jealous.
She doesn't know that this is how it works. What it stems
from is she's jealous that Rhaenyra had the balls to have that kind of freedom and she didn't.
And then she became heir to the throne. Come on, man. She got everything. I got nothing.
Yeah, well, maybe you shouldn't have listened to your dumb dad.
Wait, hold on a second. Okay, well, let's get into this fakely.
She was conditioned too.
No, I know. They've all been groomed.
Since she was born, she was told that that's what she's born to do, is have babies, and that's it.
She's not in a terrible situation here. I mean, she gets to eat every day. She lives a pretty cushy life.
I like
mean,
it.
Things could be a
Be
lot
content
worse
where you
for
are. I like
Allison.
it. I like it.
Listen, I'm just stacking people against people, not by our standards or not by the standards of the show. I'm just stacking them against the characters we know.
Well, I'm saying in this
not
time
the world
period,
at large.
In this time period, like Sharon D has said, like women don't get a lot of choices. So I think Allison, she's got a pretty good deal here.
I'm torn on Allison. I see where she's coming from. Like, she wants to have a life. She wants to enjoy sex with somebody. She never had that. She wants
or
passion.
That fantasy of the Dornish.
Right. She wants
person.
passion and life, and she was denied that. So I really don't fault her for that. I fault her for the way she's with her children and how she has let her family just fall apart.
But even that, this is what I was linking, was that you see this and you say, what a horrible mother. I see that and I go, why wouldn't she? Because they're the very thing that denied me that life. And why not escape to the arms of my Dornish sir? That's all I'm thinking.
Your dad.
It's about personal accountability, Dave.
Right.
I know that's kind of what I mean, is that I'm saying the world. Let's say even the world denied me that. So I'm taking it back. I'm taking them all back.
Yes, these children that kept me cooped up in a castle.
Hold on a second.
With endless meals and servants and ladies that will bathe me and people to do all my chores. This is just terrible,
well,
isn't
true.
it?
It's also, I'm in this position where I have to constantly fear for my children's lives. So maybe that's part of it. Maybe she distanced herself from her children because she can't face the idea of losing.
If she weren't in the castle, she would still be fearing for their lives because they would be starving. No matter where they go, the kids' lives are in danger.
You know what? Viva la revolution, you know?
Oh, gosh. Che Guevara over here. Jeez Louise. I'm not saying you're wrong at all, by the way. I'm just saying, because I see that today. How many stories of people in the world, mothers that resent their children because of the hand they've been dealt. They kind of take it out on them. That's all I'm saying, is that you see this in real life.
That's a terrible mother that takes the crap out on their kids.
They have no one else to take it out on. Fun fact, when the rat catchers are all executed, they replace them with cats. And that is why 200 years later, Arya is chasing cats through the keep.
Aww.
Wow, fun fact.
That is also where Tommen's little kitty, Sir Pounce, comes from, is the cats that they brought in to catch the rats.
Sir Pounce.
Sir Pounce.
He was the one I thought of when looking at Aegon, because I was like, what is this? He's not ready. But I'm looking at Aegon, I'm like, oh, actually, he really does want to step up. And now there's no way he's going to step down. He's all in. Whether that's going to be a good thing or not is yet to be seen.
Alicent being such a terrible mother, Aemond has to pay for motherly affection in a brothel.
Right?
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yikes.
That's
she was like trying to kiss him and he's like, no. Just hold me like a little baby.
That dude is so skinny. Rachel, you say it all the time about skinny. Where are his organs?
Folks, if you like what you heard, head over to ratethispodcast.com/squawkingdead, 5 stars and a baby head emoji. Is all that we need to know that you love us. But tell us what you liked. Tell us what you didn't like. But remember to tell us after every episode. And if you really like what you've heard, consider first following us on either Ko-fi or Patreon. It's the only place where we post our recording sessions. Following is free. Attending our recording sessions is free. So get on it. And you'll be able to lend your thoughts to these episodes where we're discussing House of the Dragon, The Boys, The Walking Dead universe, and beyond. But here's the thing. We could really use your help when it comes to the coin of the realm. And that is because we have hired an editor, and it's because we're pushing a lot of content, and your support would help us pay the bills. In exchange for your tip on Ko-fi, you'll get 30 days of access to our supporter back content, which includes the unedited episode recordings, access to our Discord that'll never go away until you decide you've had enough of it, and actually a couple more things. But if you join a membership tier on either ko-fi.com/squawkingdead or patreon.com/squawkingdead, you'll get more access to our Discord access to a bunch of free perks in the Ko-fi shop, and a whole host of other things. And if you happen to join the Whispers or Survivors tiers, you'll get shoutouts at the end of these episodes, 50% off in the merch store, as well as a free classic t-shirt from our merch store. And if you have the guts to join the Survivors tier, you can join us on stream, lending your thoughts with your face, head, mouth throughout the entire episode on camera and mic. With us, I've been your host, David Cameo. And I was joined by Cosmom09, Rachel Burt, Sharon D, aka Blazy Gardner, and Bridget KO.shfi.com/punkybrewster. That's PUNKYBRUSETER. Take us out, Bridget. Do you have a song in the can?
HOTTOGO, you can take me hot to go. Actually, do you want to hear a joke? Travis told me this yesterday and it made me think of you, Dave. Where does a mansplainer get his water from? Well,
I don't know.
Actually.
Well, actually. Oh, I almost did the joke. Oh, congratulations, patriarchy. Thank you for making it to this stupendous episode containing both our reaction and our full episode breakdown of the second episode of the second season of House of the Dragon, titled Rhaenyra the Cruel. As I mentioned before, we pay homage to both our Survivors and Whisperers tier members here at the end of these episodes. And if you want to be among these ranks, remember to head over to either ko-fi.com/squawkingdead or patreon.com/squawkingdead. Starting with the Survivors tier members, we have at RealRyanGM on X and Instagram, as well as at Snick3, that's SNICK3 on Instagram. Moving on to our Whispers tier members, we've got at Judith.Morton on Instagram, Aiden Atkin, who you can reach at ko-fi.com/AidenAtkin, at IFoundThemRickG on X. On Facebook, we have at Sandy.D.Morrison, at Lois.Martin.54, and at Kim Rally, the number 1. Thank you again for making it, for listening, for subscribing to both our YouTube channel and your favorite podcast platform. We've got so much more show for you. We've really invested in us to be able to provide these episodes for you. So like I said, we could really use your support in both tips and or membership joinings. More than anything else, please remember that we are Squawking Dead.